Tonight I am working on a project and I just thought I would pop on and do a quick little lesson on how to make a 9-patch quilt square, but I wanted to show you some of my favorite quilt books. I went to a quilt show and stumbled upon these. If you've ever wanted to make a quilt, I highly recommend these books because they're really easy to follow and they only take 3 yards of fabric. It gives instructions on how to make the quilt bigger so you can use more yardage, but it makes a really nice throw quilt, and these books are called 3-yard quilts. So this is the book I'm using for the pattern I'm going to do tonight. So on the back it shows you all the patterns that, there might be a glare. So this particular book has 9 different patterns. I actually made this one with the dogs and I will show you. So when I was at the quilt show, the company that sells those books, they sell 3 yards that all coordinate together. So this was the dog one, and I had to have it because it had all these cute puppy dogs on it. And we used to have a beagle, and we have a dog now that's kind of a golden retriever mix. So of course, the puppies on this pattern right here just reminded me of my dog, so I had to have it. But then you do an applique of a dog, and then you use this chenille trim. So this is actually 3-dimensional. So I just love dogs, and so I had to put it together. I'm not even sure what I'm going to do with this one. Somebody may get this as a gift, I don't know. But something that I really like to do, these quilts are really easy to put together. They go together really fast as far as quilting goes. But to keep the cost down, I like to back them with polar fleece, so it makes it really super soft. I think it's nice just to have a blanket on the couch to watch TV with. I just think it makes it a little bit snugglier to put the polar fleece on it, and that way if you're giving it as a gift, it kind of keeps the cost down. So you, by using the polar fleece, you don't have to use the quilt batting because it has enough thickness to it to kind of quilt it. So just keep that in mind. But I've made lots of these quilts with the polar fleece, and everybody that's gotten one has really liked them, and haven't heard any complaints. So I think it's just a different way to make a quilt. I know a lot of people like to have the quilt batting and then a cotton on the back, but I just think this polar fleece just makes it a little bit snugglier when you are watching TV, because that's when I like to wrap up in a blanket, is when I'm sitting on the couch, chilling and relaxing. So the pattern I'm going to make is going to be this one right here. So it has a 9-patch square, and then it's got an 8x8 just solid. The materials. So one of my friends is having a birthday. I just finished one quilt that I had put together forever, and I finally put the binding on it, and then that sparked me. I'm like, one of my other girlfriends is having a birthday. Let me get into my stash of fabric, because anybody that sews, you have lots of fabric, and I'm like, surely I can pull out 3 yards of something. So I had this really pretty batik. I've never used a batik. A lot of people are really into this, but it's kind of looks like a tie-dye, but it has a little butterfly pattern to it, and I had exactly 1 yard of that. I don't even know what I bought it for. I guess I just liked it and I had no idea what I was going to do with it. And then this pink is some leftover from a quilt I made for myself. That was the backing. It's a nice soft flannel. And then I had this blue that I think I used. I don't even know if I used it, but lo and behold, I had enough. So that's the 3 fabrics that I chose, and this is the 9-patch that I'm going to show you how to make this evening. So if you get one of these books, it gives you very step-by-step instructions and pictures, so it's very easy to follow. It gives you a key for each of the fabrics, so this big square is this pattern, and so I used the pattern for that as well. So it helps to kind of visualize, okay, my blue fabric is actually the white in this picture, and my pink is actually the pink. So it gave instructions to cut 3-inch widths of fabric of my pink and blue material, and then you take those strips and you sew them together. So I've got 3-inch strips of blue and pink, and then you sew all the way the length of the material. Okay, so this is your 45 inches right here, and then you do the opposite. So I've got pink on the outside of this one, and then I've got the blue on the outside of this one. So then you have these nice long strips, and then as you start quilting, or if you've thought about quilting, you do have to have some quilting supplies. You need to have a rotary cutter, a cutting mat, and then quilting rulers. So there's all kinds of different rulers, but if you're just getting started, I highly recommend this. I think it's 18 inches. Where does it say on here? No, I'm sorry. It is 24 inches by 8.5. But the reason you have to have the quilt rulers is because they are thick, and I don't know, see how thick that is? But the purpose is because you want your rotary cutter to hit right next to that. So it needs to have that thickness to it. Because I have my nice little flexible rulers, and they're thin, and I have taken my rotary cutter and cut into my ruler. So that's why you want to have your actual quilting rulers, because of the thickness of that. Plus it has all these wonderful little tiny markings on it for your 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, all kinds of things, because when you're cutting, it's very important to make sure that it is precise. So that is one of the key points of making a quilt, is being able to cut it precisely, and then as you sew it using your 1/4 inch seam allowance, it's kind of pretty standard. And so I use my sewing foot. I'm going to pop this off and show you. That's the sewing foot that I have, but this little side of it is 1/4 of an inch, so I know my fabric, it rides right on the side of that. So then I don't have to think about it. I just know my presser foot, I can ride right on the side of that. So I'm going to tilt the camera down for a minute and then just show you how to cut it with the, let me get this straightened out here. Alright, so if you've ever done any quilting, let me know. Or if you're interested in quilting, we may do one of these 3-yard quilts for a class at our new location. And don't forget, now we haven't done any quilting in the sewing club. That's more apparel and beginner sewing, but quicker projects. So what I have is I have my long piece of fabric. So my next instruction is to cut 3 inches. So I've got it marked right here. You can see through my ruler, and you want to make sure it's got all these nice lines. Make sure that my black line goes along the bottom and that it's right along this edge. So it's very important. It helps you keep it straight. And then you want to put pressure with your hand on your ruler to hold it down so that it doesn't slide. And actually I'm going to show you. I've got these little grippy things on here. I don't know what else to call them other than grippy things. But they're little stickers that kind of feel like a little piece of sandpaper, just so that it will grab onto your material or the table and gives a little bit of grip to help the ruler not slide. And I have this rotary cutter. This is an ergonomically correct one. It's a little different than the one you see, which I really like, because you can put your finger on, put your press on, put pressure down with your finger, and gives you a nice grip. But again, this rides right up against it, a little pressure. Oh, and I'm not standing up. And see, my ruler was sliding, and I've already screwed that up, so I'm gonna have to fix that a little bit. And then sometimes you don't get these little threads cut. Okay, so now we have cut a 3-inch that, and we're gonna go all the way down this whole length of the fabric here and cut all of our 3-inch strips from this. And then we're going to do the same thing on this piece right here and cut our 3 inches and do the same thing. And I've got a couple pieces cut so I can show you. So these are our little strips. So now we're going to line these up and we will sew them together. So this creates our 9 patch, but it's really nice because you've already made these rows, so you don't have to cut little individual squares and then sew all those together. So instead of sewing 9 little pieces together, I only have to sew 3 pieces together. So it's a great way to make the 9 patch, and then this is what the completed will look like. So I'll go ahead and sew this together real quick. So I do need to make sure that my pink is my center because that's how the pattern called for. We're making all of our 9 patches in the same order. So I'm going to fold this over. Now I want to take my seams and line them up right here. I don't use any pins, but you can if you want to. And if you're going to, I would just put it right in that seam. Right here. I'm going to take it over to the machine. And I'm doing a 1/4 inch stitch. Or seam allowance, sorry. It's also very important that you use the same seam allowance. Because all your cutting and your sewing needs to be exact or the same. So there's one, and now I'm going to take this piece and lay that on here. And then I'm just taking this up so I'm getting where I can see my seams and getting those lined up. And then I'll stitch this together. Alright, and then I'll press it, and here is our 9 patch. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pieces that I have pressed, we'll set this aside, and we'll go ahead and stitch our first row together. So I'm going to refer back to the pattern real fast. So it's showing me I've got my 9 patch, my first row is going to have a 9 patch on the outside and the center. So I've got 2 8x8 squares of my pattern and then my 9 patch right here. So I'm going to do this first. So I just want to make sure that I am putting it in the right order. And go ahead and line up these edges. And I like the bigger squares for, because then you don't have to worry about on the second piece of matching up those little seam allowances. And I've got it threaded. Hold on, and I didn't bring my snips. There we go. Okay, so there's that. And then we'll put our next piece. I'm gonna make sure lining up the edge, and then we'll do a little 1/4 inch seam allowance. Next piece. But see how quickly this goes together? I've probably spent an hour cutting, and you could probably put these together, I don't know, I guess it depends on how quickly you sew and then how much actual quilting you do to it, but probably 4 or 5 hours, easy. And then our last piece we'll put right here. And then we'll have our first row done. Okay. So easy as that. We have our first row completed. Just need to press it, and then we'll continue to make the rest of our 9 patches. Continue to cut our pieces and make the rest of these, and then do our row by row. And let's see. How many rows do we need to do? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 rows, and then a border and your binding. So like I said, it's really easy. I want to show you this book. These are 3-yard quilts. This is called 3-yard quilts for kids, but you can make it for anybody, obviously. I like it that it shows you the patterns on the back so you can have a nice visual. But there's multiple books that they have with lots of different patterns. I think I have 3 or 4 of these books. But like I said, they go together really easy and fast, and so fast is my key word. If anything slows me down, I'm not going to do it. That's why I like to do alteration, because it goes by fast for me. So if it takes forever, then I don't want to deal with it. So I just wanted to share that with you and show you how to make a 9-patch square with the 3-yard quilt. And I'm going to continue working on this. If you have any suggestions for things you'd like to learn, please put that in the comments. Let me know if there are classes you'd like us to teach, because we're putting together a class list for our new location. We're going to be moving our store just 1.5 miles down the road. But we do have our online sewing club, Katie's Sewing Club. If you go to the website, sewcutebykatie.com, you can just click on Katie's Sewing Club. It is a monthly membership where we work on a project together once a month. But it's awesome because it gets you sewing and, get your sewing machine out. It step-by-step video instruction. You have me to ask questions, post pictures, if you have any trouble. So I want to be available to you, and so if you're in the club, I can answer questions anytime. We can FaceTime. We do a live Q&A. So I hope you look into that if you've been wanting to learn to sew. I do a lot of online classes and trainings myself, because then I can do it at my convenience. I can do it at my own home. I don't have to go anywhere. And just, with a busy mom schedule and work schedule, it makes it a little bit easier to do things online that I can do on my own time. So just wanted to share that with you. So anyway, I'm going to get back to sewing. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's video, and I will be chatting with you soon, and hopefully I'll have a picture of a finished quilt here in a few days. So chat with you later, and hope you guys have a great night.